Good news for everyone getting the COVID jab. The Biden administration moving up their timeline this week and saying the United States will have enough vaccine to give every adult in the US a dose by the end of May. How are things progressing, Ed?
Well, I think there are two aspects to this. The no vaxxers will have a lot to say now that there's a lot of vaccination going on. And I hope they don't get too much air because fighting with them is not what we need to do. We need to open up the economy. And we need to point at the $1.9 trillion, which can set off a boom in the economy. I suspect when people are feeling very good, they will get vaccinated and all their friends. So the real herd effect is what your neighbors and friends do. The anti-vaxxers may never get vaccinated, and some of them will die from COVID. Others will be piggybackers. They will ride on our coattails, but I don't think any of them will be flying anywhere, and they're certainly not going to school or a big office building. So I think this has a long tail effect, about 18 months, and then people will be into the next big thing.
As you say, the real battle at the moment is over the 1.9 trillion in COVID relief. Biden came to the presidency with promises of $2,000 stimulus checks, which was sort of adjusted down to 1,400, saying it was only an addition to the 600 which had already been received to make 2,000 total. Now the administration toying with reducing eligibility for these checks, although it must be said the eligibility is being adjusted in a very, very minor way. This might make it more palatable in the Senate, but some are saying it could hurt Biden politically to be not seen delivering on his promises.
Well, I think that's true. If people who make over $300,000 don't get in on this deal, some of them will be angry, and they are voters. One doesn't know. I think he's playing a long game here. He has another big bill coming, and that's the infrastructure bill. He doesn't want to stumble on this one and have the infrastructure one cave, and then he has the immigration bill. So if he loses a few people here, he may gain other people later on. Remember, this is a very short-term thing. If you get $1,400, big deal. If you make $400,000 a year and you don't get $1,400, you may not like it, but you're not going to do much about it.
The new infrastructure bill, this one could top over $1 trillion as well. What's this going to involve?
This will involve basically fixing up all the roads and bridges in the country, and maybe even weatherizing the Texas municipal power system and power systems all over the country. The most important thing it'll do, though, the forest fires we had in California, the terrible tornadoes and things in the Midwest, and the hurricanes in the South, a lot of weatherization has to be done to deal with those issues, but it'll also be improving safety, dealing with climate change, and making a big start to move the United States away from the oil industry and pollution. So it is really a very important bill. It'll be the first start toward remaking America.
Syria, and Biden has been dropping bombs over the Middle Eastern nation, which the Pentagon has said destroyed multiple facilities in response to attacks against US and coalition personnel in Iraq. Some Democrats are upset, saying they weren't, and I think for some, at time of recording, still haven't been consulted on these actions, and Congress may be looking to claw back some of that power that allows the president to unilaterally take actions like these ones. What's going on, Ed?
Well, in the first place, the president has power to retaliate in like kind for actions taken against American forces, and that needs to be immediate. You can't whip your kid or give him a spanking or take his chewing gum away 2 months later. You have to do it at the time that the action happens for people to learn their lesson. So that's what this is about. The other thing is ISIS is on the move again, and Biden knows it. Intelligence tells him that's beginning to happen, and they have to nip this in the bud early. Clearly, Congress needs to be consulted on major actions. And if we remember, administration just a few weeks or months ago did a lot of unilateral things like bombing Iraq and Iran directly with impunity. Clearly, he has to mend his fences with the Congress, get the game plan in place, which can be done, but he can't be seen to be a patsy early on in this piece. Iran is going to test him, Syria is going to test him, and all those other forces are going to test him while he looks weak.
Still looking internationally, and the Biden administration, speaking of these kind of displays of strength, they're putting in sanctions for Russia due to the attempted poisoning of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny, who has now, of course, also been imprisoned. Ed, what's going on?
Well, what we said, was it a week ago or 2 weeks ago? Navalny is a real threat to Putin. Putin wants to be in for another 6, 8, 10, 12 years, who knows? Much like Trump, he knows if he's out, he probably has no place to go, even in Russia. So he's threatened by this man. The United States really has limited powers here. We're not going to invade the country. Certainly, this is a good cause celeb, but what will happen will have to happen inside Russia. And that's dangerous in one sense. Certainly, if Russia is involved in any kind of internal revolution, that's dangerous to the world with all the nukes hanging around there. So this is a very tough play. And how it will work out, I'm not certain. But I think the idea is to get some sort of economic sanctions going and perhaps get Navalny out of the country.
Meanwhile, however, last week we saw a report concluding that Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman was aware and approved of the assassination of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The administration is sanctioning some lower level Saudi officials, but nothing for Salman himself. This follows on from Biden claiming he would make Saudi Arabia a pariah for the assassination in the presidential campaign. What do you make of this response, Ed?
Well, again, it's late. Things, if they were done immediately by Trump, they would make sense and the Saudis would have felt it. But now anything you do is a bit of, well, tap them on the hands, do something to make yourself look good, feel good. Everyone knew the Crown Prince did this. All the fingers pointed toward him from the beginning. So now this late in the day, drawing this out is necessary, but it's not enough. Enough is getting the Saudis humbled. And I'm not sure how we're going to do that as long as they're supplying oil to the rest of the world.
And similar to some issues we're facing here in Australia, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is facing allegations of sexual harassment, as has been ongoing for some time. He admitted some unintentional fault, but refuses to resign and insists people wait for the results of a full investigation into his behavior. Ed, is Kumo's position sustainable at this point after all we've seen already?
No. One of the problems with these investigations is the court of public opinion has already arrived at a conclusion. And even if he's found to be somewhat innocent, slightly miscarriage of justice in some way, no one's going to believe him. it's over for him. Resignation, sad, and I'd hate to see it because he's done some good. He's not on my not one of my favorite people, but he's done some good, and he would have been a good spirited candidate for the presidency. But when it's over, it's over. But we have to look at here in Australia and the United States is a culture that creates a climate where these things happen over and over and over. This is the rape version of George Floyd. It wasn't that he was killed. It was that the culture that allowed that killing to go on and on and on is what needs to be dealt with. Cuomo is just one of many, e pluribus unum. And unless there's a real hard culture look, this will continue.
And before we move on to CPAC, another session in the Senate was delayed this week due to warnings of a potential plot to breach the Capitol once again. I'd almost forgotten, actually, that March 4th was another significant day in the QAnon calendar. Ed, I don't even know if you heard about this one, but March 4th was the day QAnon claimed Donald Trump was going to essentially come out of hiding. He was going to reclaim the
reascend, like
presidency.
Jesus, he'd come out of the tomb.
Exactly. It was time for a Lazarus moment from Donald Trump. Obviously, now we've seen this session cancelled for March 4th due to these kind of threats. Is this level of threat going to continue to haunt the Biden government? As I think, there was kind of a level of race-based threat that followed Obama through his presidency. Will we see these kind of threats continue?
Yes, because it only takes one or two people. So I think these threats are real and they will continue.
And CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference, took place this week. I'm not gonna unpack this one too deeply. A lot of it is just sort of the usual kind of talk of a party in exile. But the one clearest takeaway seems to be, given their literal false idol, their golden calf, and remarks from various speakers, as well as a closing speech from the man himself, that Republicans will continue to be the party of Trump for the foreseeable future. In spite of the great loss they've taken, they see no reason to change. Would that be a fair assessment coming out of CPAC, Ed?
It's a clear assessment, but it's not complete. He is what they have now. The people who are fawning all over him want to take his voters, but they don't have any ideas that will attract them. So it's Humpty Dumpty and all the king's men. They are all rallying around him so that when he falls down, one of them will emerge. You have to emerge with some ideas. The only person that has a cloud of an idea is Romney. And he's on the periphery of all of this. As a matter of fact, he was not even invited to CPAC. The Republican Party, as the Trump Party, probably has 1 or 2 more years to live. Because unless they come up with some ideas that deal with real problems America has, conspiracy theories and things like this just don't work for very long. We've had this in the United States before. There's Amy McPherson, a whole bunch of people who said the world's going to come to an end unless we do this or that. Even the prohibition movement had some of that in it. Americans are prone to believing this kind of stuff. Remember, the United States was founded by people who fled Europe for their outrageous religious beliefs. Now, those religious beliefs have been canonized in the United States, and they continue. And they weren't that outrageous. They're basically saying the Pope wasn't the spiritual leader of the world, which we all understand now. But the United States is prone to these sorts of things, and having them attached to a political party is a first. this political party better get a raison d'etre. If it doesn't, it dies. You can't leave the field of ideas to the Democrats.
Yeah, I'm not a religious scholar, but as I recall, things didn't work out particularly well for the Israelites that stayed by the side of the golden calf when push came to shove. So, yeah, history might be repeating itself. Ed, thank you very much. Do appreciate you, of course, joining us again this week.
Well, Biden's been very quiet, so much so that I don't know if the networks can survive with such little news. And he doesn't even know how to use Twitter.
Well, good thing they can all come to us, mate.
That's right. We are the new feed for U.S. News. Take care.